or the music in a movie is a very important part of the movie, like a character in itself, and then it makes sense to go online. Or in the soundtrack, you've got artist or a famous composer, so it's got a community, so we can raise the community through the channels that we are activating, and that makes sense as well. And it can be combined with the physical world as well.
Obviously, streaming has become the dominant part of consumption for this type of music as well.
Yeah, well, streaming is the key point right now in the music industry, well, whatever goes with the cinema is totally part of it. So, or the music in a movie is a very important part of the movie, like a character in itself, and then it makes sense to go online. Or in the soundtrack, you've got artist or a famous composer, so it's got a community, so we can raise the community through the channels that we are activating, and that makes sense as well. And it can be combined with the physical world as well, which is the best of both worlds when it happens. But well, it's harder and harder to release physical, so...
Yeah, we'll talk more about physical later, because obviously it's also a big subject. Jacques, as an independent label, what is your... how do you view the market?
And first for us, we look in the original scores. We're working with the composers like Gabriel Yared in France or the Yoshiro Hano in Japan. We look in the originality scores. The originality scores is also, we are in the niche market, but to the people looking the famous, looking in fact the composer attitude, different composer attitude, and of course, sometimes we make the additional tracks. We licensing the tracks in the Sony and the Universal, Warner, but for additional only. We privilege the original scores.
And obviously now with all that we've discussed, the digital world, it's easier for a composer or producer to just release the music themselves on streaming platforms. But why do you think it's still important to work with you guys? What can you bring them?
Yeah, the music access is easy, but for the soundtrack, for the movies, is totally different, because it is a team with the producer, with the directors. It's a totally different approach to the music. The director, you have the idea, or the composer suggests the idea. We're working on the team, and it's different view for the creative and the release.
I think what we can bring to the table is the expertise. So sometimes, we were talking about licensing, and you do need an expertise and staff to do that. So we make things easier. And also, it's a thing to release it, but sometimes you need staff to amplify it. So it just depends how... It just depends on the potential, but I think if a producer or a composer feels that this particular score or this particular soundtrack has a big potential, then I think he would need a label to amplify it through promotion and to help him get it, having it released everywhere. And yes, because there's a lot of work behind a soundtrack, and yeah.
I totally agree with you guys. I think that today you can release your music on your own, so you're out there, but you're out there into a million of other tracks. So if you don't have your own existence out there, if you don't exist already out there, you're lost in the supermarket. And this is where a record company, a label, as Sony Music represent Milan Music, that is very specialized into soundtracks, and the job that is done through the label, which means production, promotion, then goes to the digital organization. Around that, you have legal people, you have accountant people, and everything is tracked, and you can make sure that you'll be seen known, recognized, and sometimes making the record being good, selling.
And it's also maybe you offer more opportunities for things like sync or...
And cross business, yeah.
Do you have any examples of a successful, I don't know, sync with a song that comes from your catalog that you really managed to push towards a...
We present some cult soundtrack. We have Philip Glass, The Hours, and it has been used on commercial or other movie even. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff like composer like Max Richter or Craig Armstrong, or they had their music used in other movie or commercial, and originally it was a score. So yeah, it's at some point the score is becoming a record. It's not a score. It's just a record that people likes to listen. So other director or advertiser wants to use the emotion of these records in their own projects. So yeah.
You just have to check the soundtrack from Tarantino's movies. All of those tracks are, old-fashioned track from the 60s, 70s. It's very jarred. Like I remember that it was used in Vampires movie, and so all of a sudden it goes on a playlist on a famous movie. It's cult, and then it's used everywhere, and every people wants that, whether it's movies, advertising, fashion défilé, whatever.
Yeah, it was a time on every advertising used the soundtrack of Sofia Coppola or Guardian of the Galaxy, much more recently. But yeah, like every time there was a Coppola soundtrack, we were sure that
creates a trend.
Yeah, and like 6 months after, we had a request for an advertising for the song that was used in the Coppola movie. So.
And the bad side of it is that after that, those tracks, they are used and used and used. So you have people who want to do the same and who copy them. And so this is why we need legal people. We have that.
Yeah, we released the soundtracks by the name of the famous composer, Gabriel Yared, de Béatrice Thirier, or the Yoshiro Ano in Japan. But also we have the good surprise by the Bakuro a few years ago. He win the prize in Cannes, but Bakuro is not is a surprise. You have the names and sometimes the surprise. You don't have just the list is not clear.
And also, how are streaming platforms changing maybe the model of how it works between producers and you guys? Because I know some streaming platforms like Netflix, for example, they have their own teams in-house. So how do you work with them?
Well, because the business is getting structured and bigger, of course, they want to get everything in-house. But that they are streamers. We are talent driven, and we are not technical. I mean, Sony Music is not a startup. So this is two different worlds, two different jobs. They will still need us to work with artists because they invest money, they do technical stuff, they are good at datas. They are not music creators.
Yeah, I think once again it's about the potential. I mean, we don't do volume. We don't release a lot of soundtracks, and for that, I mean, for a score that don't have potential, I think it's best that Netflix does it themselves. And it's out there, and you can listen to it if you want.
If you don't have money to make with it, you're not interested.
No. It's just that if we put time and money in it, and we don't have that much money and we don't have that much time, it's because there's an additional value for both a platform and us So we bring the artist and we can talk about the creative, but it's not, of course, for something that is quite random, it's not interesting to come and see us because we won't add anything. But if there's a potential and if you need someone to amplify it and if you need the image and the artistic value of an artist, then yeah, you have to work with us and we have to work with them, and it's for the best, I mean.
We have the independent label, independent music publisher. We have a different approach because we working close to the team production, close to the director. It's a choice. Discussion is a choice to look in the appropriate to the composers. It's more artistic maybe, but okay, the approach is totally different.